the car pickup line for my 11-year-old sixth grader. I want to talk about how wealthy people think in 2025. How are wealthy people thinking this year? It's a brand new year, lots of change, lots of drama, lots of feelings, lots of emotion, uncertain markets. We're not sure if the market's going to continue to go up or if it's going to go down. We've seen some wild, wild things happening recently with the AI and NVIDIA and chips and cryptocurrency. Things are wild and crazy. So, how are wealthy people thinking? How are they thinking about investing? How are they thinking about money? Well, I'll tell you. I work with a lot of wealthy people. I study wealthy people. I know how they think. And here's the thing, wealthy people in 2025 are thinking the same way they thought in 2024, 2023, 2022, 2021, 2020, all the way back to the beginning of recorded history. Wealthy people are very different than people who are not wealthy. Future wealthy people think like wealthy people, and they think very differently than people who are broke, who are poor, middle class, lower income. You can be broke and have a rich mindset and have a wealthy mindset. A lot of people start out that way. Most millionaires in the United States, for example, are self made, anywhere from 80 to 90% of them. So they were broke at various times in their lives, but they had a wealth mindset. So you need to start thinking like a wealthy person if you want to get wealthy. And if you have money, you better think like a wealthy person or you're going to lose all your money. So here's what it comes down to. One of my favorite books that I've read around money that I strongly recommend is called The Richest Man in Babylon. This is one of the first books on personal finance I read. And you'll have to forgive me because it was many years ago at this point, over 20 years ago, I read this book. But I remember that the main character was approaching money very differently. And the book was set in that time of ancient Babylonia. And who's this richest guy in Babylon? And how's he thinking? Well, he had a whole strategy around money. And you need to have this strategy around money. And if there's one thing I could do to promote, it would be if I could catch every 18-year-old or even younger, frankly, but especially before people get their first job. If you have a wealth mindset before you get your first job, you will become a multimillionaire. I don't even care what industry you go in. I don't care what major you major in. I don't care what job you end up in. If you have this wealth mindset. And the wealth mindset goes like this. You get money, it comes into your life. We'll use a dollar, for example. And the very first thing you do with that dollar is you save and invest a percentage of it. Personal finance experts will say at least 10%. I shot for 30% my entire life because I wanted to become wealthy faster and I wanted to have more money. But I had this mindset before I got my first job because you're going to feel broke because you're not making any money. And then when you get your first job, I remember the first job I got, I was 29 years old, get coming out of grad school. I had worked all the way up until then, but first job that I wasn't sinking money back into the school, and I made $36,000 a year. Now it was a while ago, so those people are probably making 40,000 a year now for that same job. But I felt rich. I felt rich. I'd never made that much money. And I had this mindset from the start. I am going to save and invest 30% of this. And I kept that job and I was able to make more money over time. I was working in the public school system in Hawaii and I became a millionaire because I had this mindset where I saved and invested 30% of every dollar I made. Now, what most people do, here's the poor mindset. This is what most people do. They get their first job. Wow, they feel rich. They have that same feeling I had, like, oh my gosh, I have so much money compared to not having much money as a kid, not having much money even in summer jobs, and I'm saving up for school, definitely no money in school. So what they do, they get their first job, 36,000, 50,000, $100,000. And then they go through the list of things they want. Well, I need a place to live. So you go rent an apartment. Um, what else do you do with your paycheck? Well, I need a form of transportation. So you go buy a car. You're sick of riding the bus. You're sick of riding your bike. You're sick of that beater car. Now you have a job, so you go get a nice car, a new car. Gonna get a car loan, but what well, they said it's only what, $300 a month, $500 a month? I can do that. I'm bringing in, 3, 4,000 a month. Easily do 500 for that. Easily do 1,000, 1,500 for rent. Okay, now how much money do I have? Ooh, I still got another $1,000 coming in. I need to get furniture. I need to get a new wardrobe. Of course, I need to do all this. I got to look good at my job, right? This is the poor mindset. And so now what you've done is you had a job. Now you had a higher paying job, more money than you've ever had in your life, 50, 60, $100,000, and you've now spent all of it in your lifestyle. And it's many people who have done this for years and years and years. So you've been spending every dollar you got in your entire lifestyle. You've been at it for 15 years, and then you run across a video like this with a financial psychologist telling you, hey, if you want to get rich, you got to have a rich mindset. And the rich mindset is save and invest a percentage of every dollar you make before you do anything else with it, 10, 20, 30%, whatever it is. And you say, Dr. Brad, I can't afford to invest. Look at all my bills. I've got an apartment. I've got a car payment. I've got credit card debt. I can't afford to invest. Well, then it's really painful at that point because you missed the rich mindset that you should have had before you made your first dollar. And so now you got to go through some pain and suffering. You're going to either have to cut back on your expenses, get a roommate, whatever, sell your car, buy a cheaper car. It's brutal. It's brutal. Or it's less brutal to get a side hustle. So that would be the one thing I would suggest if you don't want to make all those cuts. So once you've already established your lifestyle and your expenses for your lifestyle, it is super, super painful to try to go unwind that or work nights and weekends on a side hustle to make more money so that you can save and invest. So if there's one thing that I wish we could instill in every young person before they get their first dollar, and by the way, I'm talking birthday money, holiday money. I've got my kids doing this from day one. This is built into their brain. Now they may rebel against me, their father. That's very, very possible. But I'm giving them the rich mindset. Are you giving the young people that you come across, are you giving them a rich mindset? Every single person I know who is not conscious of this and is not paying themselves first, whether they're making 50,000 a year, 100,000 a year, $200,000 a year, even $1 million a year, they have no extra money at the end of the month to invest. None of them. Dr. Brad, $1 million a year. Oh my gosh, I would invest so much. No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't. You know what you would do? You would take your $1 million a year you're making and you would go buy the most expensive house you could buy. You'd buy the most expensive car you can buy. You'd rack up you'd fill your closets full of the most expensive, lavish clothes. You'd go on vacations. That's what you would do because you have a poor mindset. You have a poor mindset. And if you got a poor mindset, like I said, at 50,000, 100,000, $1 million a year, you will have zero money at the end of the month to invest because you didn't have a rich mindset. You need the rich mindset. If you have the rich mindset, you can become a multimillionaire by making 40 or $50,000 a year, maybe even less. If you have a poor mindset, you will never get rich, even if you're making $1 million a year. Understand this. The most valuable thing you can have is not a high income job. The most valuable thing you can have is a wealth mindset. And it starts with this very basic premise: a percentage of every dollar I make before I do anything else, before I decide on my lifestyle, before I get a car, before I decide where I'm going to live, before I decide what sort of clothes I'm going to wear, how I'm going to live my life, where I'm going to take vacation, what schools I'm going to put my kids in, where I'm going to go shopping. Before you do any of that stuff, you take money off the table. You take a percentage of your income, a percentage of that paycheck, and you save it and you invest it. Save it, meaning not spend it, and then you invest it. You invest it for your long midterm goals, your short-term goals, your long-term goals. But the most important investment you need to make is your financial freedom fund. Your financial freedom fund. You can call it your retirement fund. I like financial freedom. Sounds better to me. I never want to quote stop working when it comes to retirement. I love the work I do. I'll never stop working until I can't work anymore. But I want financial freedom, of course. That's what I worked for. And I'm very blessed that I own a lot of my time. I still have obligations, and I own businesses, and I teach and I do all that. But I don't need to do any of that, by the way. I could sell my business interests and be set for life and never have to work another day in my life. Okay. And I want you to be in that position. So for me, it's all because I want to do it. It's all because I love doing it. I love servicing my clients. I love teaching my students. I love writing books. I love doing videos like this while I'm in the car line at my son's middle school. You have to have a rich mindset. You have to have a wealth mindset. Thank you for the likes. Thanks for being here. If you have any questions, drop it in the chat here. We're live right now. So, the wealth mindset you need to have, every dollar that comes in my life, I am saving a percentage of it. As I mentioned, I shot for 30%. I know people who live in a van for years or live in their mom's basement, and they're able to set aside 90% of every dollar they make. 90%. Wow, you're able to do that. Even if you're able to do that for a few years, you're going to be a multi-millionaire. How do I get rich? What I'm saying, you'd let me know in the chat. What percentage of your income are you saving and investing right now? What percentage? And people will say to me, Dr. Brad, you have 4 kids. I have 2 kids. Kids are expensive. But I will ask you again, what percentage of your income are you saving and investing? What percentage are you saving and investing? You need to be saving and investing some money, or you will never, ever, ever get rich. It's just the bottom line. Even if you get high income, I know people making 7 figures a year. They have no money. They're broke. They spend it all. Lifestyle inflation, they get the biggest, best house they can get, the biggest, best cars, the biggest, best wardrobe. They go first class everywhere. They lavish vacations, and they're broke. They're broke. They're broke. You got to have a wealth mindset. You got to have a rich mindset. And that really is saving and investing a percentage of every dollar you make. Now, you might say to me, Dr. Brad, too late. Didn't have a rich mindset. I spend every dollar I make. I've got kids. I've got responsibilities. I've got a mortgage. I've got this and that and the other. I say start with 1%. Start with 1%. Okay, here we go. We got some questions coming in. Do you recommend index funds? I think index funds are great. Now, the problem with index funds is that nobody really knows what that means. There's a gazillion index funds covering a bunch of different asset classes, and it's tough to do on your own. So I can't give you financial advice right now because I don't know you. But I will say this: the Security and Exchange Commission, which is the watch watchdog group to protect consumers, talks about target date funds on their website. They talk about target date funds. And target date funds spread money across a bunch of different index funds. Okay. And it rebalances automatically as you get older. And you just sort of set it and forget it. And your goal then is to save and invest as much as you can because you're not worrying about what's happening there. Those things have done great historically. They'll get you access to thousands and thousands of stocks and bonds across international, domestic, across mid cap, large cap. That's really what you want. You want a highly diversified asset allocation. That's the problem with quote index funds is people usually just think about one, and it's like it's this huge complicated matrix around how much you're supposed to put here or there. So that's why I would strongly recommend that you research target date funds. Should I invest first in faith or financial? I think you should do both. So if faith is important to you and financial is important to you, do both. Absolutely. And if your faith says that you need to do a certain percentage, go ahead and do it. I would look to do an equal percentage towards you and your financial future. Do you recommend buying rental properties? That can be a great way to make money. They talk about rental properties as being passive income. It's not very passive. I've owned rental properties. Yeah, it's pretty active. You're in charge, unless you outsource it, which is a fine thing to do too. It's great. It's great. It's an asset. It's not a way to get rich quick at all. But if you can get a good rental property that essentially somebody's going to end up paying the mortgage for you over the next 10, 20, 30 years, it's a great way to build up generational wealth for sure. I will say this too: I look at real estate as just one asset class, and I don't want people to have all their eggs in one basket, if that makes sense. I want diversification because sometimes real estate takes a hit, right? Sometimes you get bad renters, you can't get them out. Sometimes real estate just tumbles. It tumbles, and I've seen a lot of people get wrecked. because they had 100% of their investable assets in real estate or one other asset class. That's when it starts to get dangerous. So the rich mindset thinks about diversification. A poor mindset thinks about, I'm going to put all my money in one asset class, one crypto coin, one stock, one whatever, and I'm going to become rich. A poor mindset approach to investing is, I'm going to take $1,000, for example, and I'm going to turn it into $10,000 in the next month, in the next year. That is a poor mindset. You will lose all your money if you're approaching investing like that. Even if you get lucky, even if you get lucky a time or two, that eventually is going to crash and burn for you. That is not how rich people invest at all. And you might even say to yourself, well, or you might say to me, well, Dr. Brad, it takes money to make money. It takes money to make money. No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. It takes a wealth mindset to become wealthy. That's really what it takes. Anyone can make money. A lot of people make a lot of money, but they don't have a wealth mindset, so they don't keep it, they don't grow it, they don't become multimillionaires. So you can work in the fast food industry your entire life. It's harder, of course, because you're not, if you're investing 30% of your income, the higher your income, the more money you can invest. So I am pro high income, but bottom line is, if you're making high income and you're investing 0% of what you make, you're going to be broke. Broke meaning that at the end of the month you have no money. So I look at people in mansions, multi-million dollar homes with very fancy cars who are stressed. In my mind, they're broke. All their money is going towards these things, and they have no money left over at the end of the day. They have no financial security. They're living a life of financial stress. If they lost their job, they'd be on the street in 3 months. That is no way to live. That's no way to live. So, the wealth mindset that I am instilling in my children, that I want to instill in you right now, that I want you to instill in your children or anyone you come across and anyone you meet, is this: pay yourself first. Oh my gosh, if you love yourself, if you love your family, if you love your children, if you want to own your time someday, you have to pay yourself first. And I know it's difficult to unwind a lifetime of expenses that you've built up, and a quality of living, and the house, and the car, and the blah blah blah. And I know it's really tough to downsize, but just start here. Start with 1% of your income. Save and invest it. Okay, open up an account. I love Roth IRAs. If you have a company, I love 401ks or 403bs if you work for like a nonprofit or educational institution. Um, those are great vehicles. I don't even care about the vehicle. I don't even care. We could talk about what's best based on your scenario. I think it's always wise to consult with a financial planner about your specific circumstance. But for me, as somebody who doesn't know you and I'm just doing financial education, I don't care where you start, just start. You can learn the details as you move forward. But look, I think a great do it yourself strategy for investing, again, mentioned on the Security and Exchange website, is something called target date funds. They have them at Vanguard, they have them at Fidelity, they have them at Schwab. It's one fund, you set it, you forget it. It'll adjust over time. You pick the date at which you want to be financially free or you want to retire. And then your job is to save and invest as much as you can in that. Yes, an easy way to pay yourself for stacking Benjamins. What's up? Is to automate your savings. I love it. I love it. You and I have actually talked about that. Um, and it's my favorite strategy. And so, for example, my wife and I met for our New Year's discussion around money, and we had we got a bunch of accounts, but we had maybe three savings accounts, and we opened up about six other ones just so that we could do that, so that we could, anytime you have a big chunk of money in your checking account, it's going to disappear. And so I was looking at our checking account, like, we got too much money in here. It's going to start feeling like, oh, let's spend it all, and we might miss out on some important goals. So we sat down and we said, okay, so what are these smaller goals, short-term goals that we want to save for, invest for, so we can be more conscious about it? And that's what we did. We set up, I think we got about eight roughly savings accounts, and we named it after, travel, a tax account, activities account, a new car account, a home improvement account. So we created all these separate accounts, and then we did what stacking Benjamins that you, Joe. What we did is we automated, just as you're saying. So we decided, okay, how much per month do we want going here or there? And we did that. We do that automatically in our 401ks and our other investment accounts, but we decided to do it on the cash flow side just to be more conscious. with regard to our cash flow. So, the wealth mindset, you have to save and invest. It's the first thing you do before you pay rent, before you pay utilities, before you go get clothes, before you decide on any aspect of your life. And the earlier you get this message, the easier it'll be for you. Pay yourself first. What percentage, Dr. Brad? I always shot for 30%. Financial experts say 10% quite often. I wanted to be rich, more rich and richer faster. So that's why I shot for 30. And I know people who've been able to go through periods of time in their lives, 90% of their income. It's so funny. My 11-year-old invests 100% of every dollar he gets. Much to his mother's chagrin, by the way. Like she thinks it's important for him to spend money, but he's like, "Hey, look, Dad, you and Mom buy everything. I got clothes, I got a house, you guys pay for my food. I'm investing in all of it. I'm investing in all of it." Um, I love it. I love it, of course. My younger one, he's the one I'm worried about. He's like, "Dad, I don't want to invest. I want to spend all my money." I'm like, "Oh, you're just trying to get under my skin." Like he's 7. I'm hoping I can eradicate that poor mindset from him and teach him the rich mindset, because that's the mindset you need to have if you want to become wealthy. It's the mindset I wish I had when I was younger, and it's one of my primary passions on social media is to try to share this with as many people as possible. So what how do wealthy people think in 2025? They think the same way they've been thinking for thousands of years, and that is pay yourself first. I love y'all. Thanks for being here. I'll catch you next time.